So thank you so much for joining. I'm really glad we had a lot of registrations for this webinar, and I certainly hope that we will also have like at least half of the participants turning up, which is already quite a good number. My name is István Lengyel, and I am the founder and CEO of BeLazy. And I would like to deliver this webinar about the functionality that we have built around XTRF. We call it 360 automated project management because our goal is to allow you to work without human interaction. If your job types, which are usually the small jobs, allow you to do so. And I think that we went far. There are still some gaps, but you will see in this presentation. So let's start with a bit of a definition of what BeLazy is, and then I will ask a couple of questions also from you. So BeLazy is a secure cloud-based middleware. It's an integration platform that is trying to do what we call the transaction automation. It is trying to integrate various sources of work with systems that register and manage projects, which is the business management systems such as XTRF. So we are trying to integrate vendor portals, which are basically for single language vendors who work for other language companies, translation management systems, which are usually where enterprises send their jobs to multilingual vendors. We're looking into email parsing in an intelligent way. And you can also use an API in order to push projects from, let's say, a Twitter translation or a Facebook translation or something like that in a simple way into any of the business management systems. So I promised that I would like to also hear from you. And while we cannot do this like completely live, I suggest that we should do this in a poll. So my question is, are you an XTRF user? Because looking at the list of people who registered, I found that quite a few of you were not an XTRF user. And this is a complicated question. So the question is that if you are an XTRF user, then are you using only classic projects or also smart projects or both? And if you are not using XTRF, are you actually looking into XTRF or not? And are you using a commercial BMS or an own BMS on your end? Or it can also be the case that you are not using any business management system at the moment, even though sometimes business management systems are as simple as a Google Sheet. And then the second question relates to the integrations. You only need to answer this if you are an XTRF user, whether you use a MemoQ, a Memsource, a Trados, an XTM integration in your organization or not. So far, 25 people have voted. I would give you 15 seconds of silence so that you can read through this. Okay, so if you wanted to vote, you probably have voted already. So I'm going to end the poll and let's have a quick look at the results. I'm sure everybody likes to see how people work. So the majority of the users, but not the vast majority of the users, are using XTRF with only classic projects. But there are also people who only use smart projects and who also use both. There are some other people that are using other tools and not looking into XTRF. So for you, probably it will be interesting that what we do with XTRF is something that we do similar things with other systems like Protemos and Plunet. Regarding the integration usage, the vast majority of you do not use the XTRF CAT tool integration, which is something quite interesting. And you will probably see like maybe BeLazy can offer you something along these lines that can be good for you. So let's continue our presentation. talking a bit about the 3 types of automation. So when it comes to automation, everybody talks about it. There is linguistic automation. This is like machine translation. This is like detecting the non-translatables, whatever you like. There is process automation, which is something that XTRF is quite good at. They have a lot of automation functionality built into the system, but there is transaction automation, which is between systems. And our specialty, and this is, I believe, where we are quite unique, is that we are automating the transactions. So while we use the functionality of XTRF for all the workflow automation, for all the pricing automation, and so on and so forth, what we do is that we connect XTRF with other systems, and all the automation that we provide is between 2 systems. When it comes to XTRF automation, it's important to mention that we have 2 systems. One is the XTRF vendor portal, which means your customer is using XTRF, and you may be using anything, but most likely you will be using XTRF. This is the thing which is looking for the jobs on the customer side and fetching jobs into your system. The second automation is the home portal automation, if you like, which is these projects or any other type of project coming from any translation management system or Plunet or whatever is automatically generated as an XTRF Classic or Smart project in your home portal. So bear in mind that when we talk about XTRF automation, we always have the vendor portal separate from the Classic and Smart projects automation. And today we will talk more about the second one, but we will also talk a bit about the first one. What's the difference between how XTRF does integration with, let's say, MemoQ, Memsource, Trados, others, versus how BeLazy does it? So in XTRF, XTRF is the boss. In those integrations, you create the project in XTRF, or the project can be created through the customer portal. Those are manually created, and then the projects are automatically created in the CAD tool and automatically managed, and pretty good integration, but it's always manually created in the first place, the project, either by you or by the customer in the portal. What the BeLazy integration does is that this is the place where XTRF is the receiving system rather than the originating system. The project is offered in a CAD tool, let's say Memsource. It appears because your customer or the content connector has created a project for you. And then it is automatically pushed into XTRF, but XTRF doesn't create a project here. And then it is automatically reassigned to the translator whenever the time comes, and so on and so forth. This is useful for the connected projects, which is more and more today, for projects that are created by your customers, for projects that were manually created in the CAD tool. So for example, you may want to do some preparation before you can do that and then push that into XTRF. Or you can import, for example, project package and push it into XTRF. We've got an upcoming MemoQ integration that allows you to import a Trados package or a MemoQ package, and it just goes straight into 20 languages, and the project will be created in XTRF. And also the projects that are created by the customers in their TMS. So this is the difference, that in the XTRF case, it's XTRF is the boss, the CAD tool is the slave, if you like. The BeLazy integration is where the CAD tool is giving you the job and it's created in XTRF. So what are our automation capabilities in the case of XTRF? First of all, automated project creation, which is that when a project comes in, all the metadata, languages, word counts, CAD receivables, and so on and so forth are taken and pushed into XTRF. Then we start monitoring the project. What happens? You can assign a new vendor, and maybe the vendor has a counterpart in the CAD tool, or you can deliver something. You can have a file that you need to push back into the originating system, let's say XTRF into XTRF. These are the capabilities that we do currently. There's another thing. So if anybody wants to use content integration. BeLazy's core business is translation management system and vendor portals. So these are the things that we do. We are not a middleware for content management systems. So like WordPress and others, it's not our main thing. There are other companies like Ilengel or Xilio that do that. What we want to do is allow these companies to integrate with XTRF and with other tools through BeLazy. And because of this, we've got a vendor portal API. It's a very simple API for pushing content. So if you've got a customer who wants to directly push things to you, you can also use this, or you can use Integromat or Zapier to automatically use one of those connections that they have, for example, with Twitter or Facebook. And whenever there is a new post on Facebook, let's say from this account, it gets automatically created in your XTRF. Maybe the MemoQ or Memsource integration kicks in, creates the project, it's translated, and then it can get back to the original system. So this is a real deal for continuous localization. It's not a hot folder approach. I'm not going to show this today, but just know that it's possible to push things quite easily via BeLazy into XTRF. So how about the workflow? So first, the project is generated in the TMS or CAT or vendor portal. So for example, it appears in your Memsource or in your, it appears in your customer's Globallink, or it appears in your customer's Plunet or Welocalize junction or something like that. Either manually or automatically, it doesn't matter. You can have some project preparation, you can have splitting at this point. Next, the project is analyzed there and it's inserted into XTRF via BeLazy. If there are files and it's a system which supports file-based workflows, then the files are downloaded. Otherwise, a URL is generated that you can give to your vendor. And we actually put those URLs into the vendor nodes. Then the vendor assignment is monitored by BeLazy. So BeLazy is checking every 5 minutes to half an hour whether you have actually assigned a vendor. And then if you have set up some ways of mapping that back, you will see how later, then it's also changed in the original. So you don't have to log into your customer's TMS in order to assign a translator. When the translator said with your job offer in XTRF that I'm taking it, they are going to get it within less than half an hour, the possibility to work on those files with the link. When a vendor delivers in XTRF, it's also delivered in the vendor portal. So when you finish a project, or when a vendor finishes a task, let's say in Welocalize junction, you get separate tasks for translation and review. And they want you to upload both. We can monitor the workflow in XTRF and the right things go back to the right places. So what's the business value in this? First of all, less project creation time. This is significantly less, and we've got customers who mentioned that the project workflow is twice as fast, even if they have to work in a CAT tool separately or they have to do some other things. We have customers that actually are able to churn way more projects. So it's somewhere between twice to 10 times. That's what we see usually, how much faster it can be. Just yesterday, we were hearing from one of our customers that with their growth, which was about like 300,000 euros, they didn't have to hire 2 project managers, but only 1. The other thing is sales. I mean, you can actually sell better with scalability and lower turnaround times. This is like automation is helping the sales agenda for companies. We also provide tech sales consultancy, so as part of a partnership. So if you need help in convincing a customer from a technical perspective or from a supply chain perspective, then you can come to us and we can help you. And you can also start selling real continuous localization, which is something that a lot of people talk about, but not so many people do. Even larger companies have some difficulties with that. So let's get our hands dirty now. And I'm going to show you a couple of videos now. This one is about the initial setup. So what we are doing here in this video is we have an account in the vendor portal of XTRF, and we want to look for projects and create them in the home portal. In my video, it's actually the same system. This is like you can hack it. I don't have access to more than one XTRF system, but still I am logging in with different users. You see, this is the vendor portal. I'm logged in with my NIMSY user, and there is the other portal, the home portal, where I'm logged in with my admin user. And this is BeLazy. So with BeLazy, I log in first. You can choose to log in either via Google or Microsoft. We only support these two, and this is actually good for data security. And the system loads, and the first thing you need to do is create a connection. So we add the new connection. The connection is the source, in this case, the XTRF vendor portal. I don't need much. I need the URL, which I'm going to just copy here. I need my username and I need my password. Nothing else than what a project manager needs. So BeLazy thinks a bit to see whether this can be automated, and then it tells me that it can be automated. So I go to automate, and now I need to set up my XTRF home portal so that BeLazy is able to create projects in this and manage projects. I need to enter the URL. Based on the URL, BeLazy identifies this is an XTRF, and I need to paste my access token here. So you need to have the XTRF APIs. And when you have the APIs, every user has an access token, and every user is identified as an access with an access token. You can use multiple project managers, and even in let's say you are working for one company, I don't know, Moravia, and like one of their customers is taken care of by one project manager, another customer is taken care of by another project manager, and everybody else is taken care of by a third person. You can set this up with multiple access tokens. This is how you generate your access token in XTRF. And don't worry about that. I have already deactivated that. This is from a video. It's actually on the profile page. Every user needs to add an access token. If you have more users, enter the project manager's name and enter their access token. So you need to do a little bit of preparation to generate these from each person that would have access to BeLazy. So the next thing is to install a macro. I mean, we use macros in XTRF in order to automate a lot of functionality. XTRF has a pretty good API, but not everything is available on the API. And we have one master macro that we actually update at times by adding more functionality. And this is something that you need to set up. So when you set up a macro, it needs to be a project-specific macro. You just enter a name to it. Fairly easy. You need to change this setting, and it's written in Groovy, not Apache Velocity. So you click on copy the macro in the end and paste it into the editor of the macros. It's a long one. It's more than 700 lines. And the good news is that it's successful if it says error. This function doesn't exist. So we need to save it. And when you save it, you get a URL, which ends in 64. This is the macro ID. BeLazy only needs to know which macro you need to refer to. And if you're using smart projects, you also need to make sure that automatic receivables and automatic payables are actually configured under the projects and quotes module of XTRF. This is for smart only. There are some other things that you might want to set up which relate to the delivery of projects, but those are minor, and we always do an onboarding, so I didn't take the time to show everything that needs to be set up, because based on your needs, we can help you, and we work with every company individually. So the XTRF connection is done. Now BeLazy is able to create projects in XTRF. That was it. Easy, right? There's the next step, which is the mapping. So your customer has, for example, a set of specializations. And you also have a special set of specializations, but they are not the same. For example, your customer calls something IT, and you call it information technology or programming. This is what the mappings are about. If my customer's project or my TMS project, it has certain metadata, how do I map it? How do I represent that in my system? What value do I pick? This is mapping. The first mapping is a fairly simple one, which is the project name mapping. What should be the name of the project that BeLazy generates in XTRF? Well, here I'm selecting from a lot of different information. So let's start with the name of the connection. Then the second is going to be just a dash, like a little text here, so that it's nicely formatted. Then the name of the project, and remember that this is coming from an XTRF portal, vendor portal, and that's the project name. And if the XTRF vendor portal shows it, because you can set it up to show it, it can even have the end client. So you have a lot of possibilities here, basically every metadata. Most of it you won't use, but like languages you might want to include in the name. The next thing is mapping the clients. Here is a list of my clients and my price profiles. You need to select the default one. And this is a very generic logic of BeLazy that you need to define which are the metadata that are important in your decision. So I put, for example, end client, and I put also the currency, because in XTRF, a price profile is in a currency. So if your customer is sending you jobs in euros and dollars and yen, then you need to set up 3 currency based on the currency. Or let's say, so for example, if end client equals, and here I'm getting the list of all the end clients, Welocalize Ireland, then I want to use this or that price profile. This is a test system, so it doesn't really have meaningful price profiles, but you understand, I believe, what I'm talking about. So if the currency is Chinese yuan, this is taken from the customer system. So all those values are coming from the customer system, because BeLazy actually checks up to 200 projects to see what are the values that were done. This is why we call it onboarding, and we do it in the beginning once for every connection. And this is just the setup. You will never have to redo this if it is done correctly. And now the third one is the specialization. We talked about this, and honestly, because this is the same system, the specializations are the same, but you can have situations when they are not. On the left, you could see the specializations coming from the customer system. On the right, your XTRF. Now the next one is the services. And this is when people ask me, is it able to do smart projects and classics? Yes, we can do both. And how can you tell which service belongs to which project? You can see it in XTRF if you go into services. There are these 14 services. This is something that BeLazy cannot show because it's not available on the APIs. But you can see that basic translation is a smart project, for example, whereas translation, translation plus, translation premium, those are classic projects. Even within the same connection, you can use both, because just like with the customer, you can also say that I want to use this service if it is, let's say, a transcreation, and I want to use this service if it is a translation and review or a post editing. And one of them can be classic, the other can be smart. Again, you need to define what defines which service you want to use, and then define like what values define for that. So here the project name defines it, and after that, what project name is what will make me use the standard translation. The next topic is the units, calculation units. I mean, in this situation, we only have source word, which is good. I assigned both of these to source word. And the rates, which, given that this is XTRF to XTRF, it's simple, but in some systems, this is way more complicated. Just imagine when you've got, for example, a cross or word B or others that are different in the rate cards. The last one was the languages. You only need to change this if there is a real need for that, or you don't know, for example, which sub-language you want to use. And now the project has already, the connection has already synchronized, and you can actually see the projects appear from this customer. Some of these are actually pretty old, but that's because this is not the first time I demoed that. And you can see that you have the list of the projects there, where it's coming from, what specialization, what is the deadline, what is the amount of money they pay to you, and what's the weighted word versus non-weighted word. So this was the configuration. Now, let's look at something exciting, which is an automated delivery from one XTRF to another and back. So I've got this project here where I selected a user. I'm going to offer this through my vendor portal. I can add some instructions for the jobs. Very simple. There is costing, there is a reference file, there is a work file, and everything is set up. So this is already available for the vendor. What the vendor does now, and you do as a vendor, is synchronize here. I mean, synchronization happens automatically every half an hour, but I didn't want to wait. And we refresh the list. And you will see that this project, which is offered through the vendor portal, is already available to you. So you can just click on approve. And when you click on approve, two things happen. In the vendor portal, the project is going to be accepted. And in the home portal, the project is going to be created. This is what's happening right now. And the delivery spend thing is another list, which is showing like what are the projects already created. And from this list, you are able to see your project in XTRF and the vendor portal project as well. So this is your project and how it was created from the vendor portal. You see that the client deadline, the reference number, the volume, some of the notes there are automatically generated. Receivables are generated. CAT receivables are automatically taken over, and the rate is taken over. The contact person is also set up. So a fair bit is done for you automatically. What we need to do is outsource this because we are going to process this project. So internally, we've got the translation and the review workflow, and we just select one translator here with start date, deadline. This is something that you have probably already done if you are an XTRF user. And I'm showing here a Smart project because probably that's also easier to follow for those that are not XTRF users, but the same way it works with classic projects. So I started the translation here. I mark it as ready. Now I need to go into proofreading. And I mean, this is a mock-up. So this is not a real project. So there is no translator really taking it. I'm just simulating a translator because what I want to show you is that as the translator delivers a file and the project is set to finish automatically, even the translator delivered file can go back automatically. So look here. I'm just, I got the instructions for the jobs, which were set up earlier. I got the files as well. It's a source is a reference now because the source would be the translated file. And I can just deliver straight from here a new document, which is what I'm doing right here. So it's a translated document. I need to select that it's translated. This is something that the vendor could also do, or the translator could also do in the vendor portal, languages, and it's done. In classic projects, you need to put it to verified. I mean, this can be turned off if you like, but this is one way to prevent a fully automatic delivery if the project manager wants to look at the document. But if you don't want the project manager to look at the document, you can also do it, and it's ready. So now we made the project, we finished the project, it's ready, it's closed, and I'm just going to synchronize here so that it's immediately taken over. And what's happening is that BeLazy identified that the project was delivered. It sees that it's able to deliver back to the original system without ever having to log into that other XTRF vendor portal. And once it delivered, you are going to see this, that if I go into the vendor portal and open it up, I will see that the document is there, and I will see that the project has been closed, so it's not invoiceable. I think that's the idea. With a link, you can go back directly always to the project, and it's a not invoiced is the current status. So it's being delivered automatically together with document. And if the project manager of my client, this is what I see now, because this is like an integration of the two systems. And this is the project I was setting up in the beginning for my vendor, goes into a system, they see that the project has been uploaded and the task is ready. So this is the benefit of automation between an XTRF vendor portal project and an XTRF home portal. You can always replace the XTRF vendor portal with any system. So if it's a Plunet or if it's I don't know, Lionbridge project, that will also be automatically delivered. So this was the demo here, and this is not where our knowledge stops. We can also do vendor assignments automatically. And in order to do vendor assignments, just a little bit of a feedback here. It's you can, for example, do that in Memsource. That's one of the systems where you can do. So let's see how we receive a Memsource Smart project in XTRF. Now, previously I was creating the projects in XTRF and offering it through the vendor portal. Now I'm creating the project in Memsource. Those of you who are using Memsource probably know how to do this. So I set up the target languages, I set up due date, easy peasy, a purchase order number, and if you want, you can also set up the financials, so like price lists and net rate schemes, and the workflow. Now the next thing is to create a job, which is basically the document to translate. The file has been added, and off you go, create. The project is basically ready to be taken. So now I would like to take this project into XTRF, and I would like to assign a vendor from within XTRF. So let me just synchronize. And the project is being processed. This means that it's actually, there is no analysis. XTRF needs an analysis. So BeLazy goes back to Memsource and says, like, please create an analysis. And with an auto approval rule, we pick up every project from Memsource. So that's the idea. With this auto approval rule, you can, for example, set up connections to other companies and say that I'm automatically taking every project from this XTRF vendor portal that is not within 4 hours, or that is like not more than 50,000 words or 10,000 words. You can set up quite sophisticated rules here. And then the customer is immediately getting a confirmation. So the project was created automatically in XTRF home portal. And you will see that the link is, for example, available, the deadline is available. So you can see some meta information here, and the languages were set up, and the right service was selected. So now, just like before, we need to assign a vendor here. Like in order to assign a vendor, we need to do like, let's say, job offers or select a provider. And I'm putting this test translator X6666 into the process for German. I'm doing some similar methods for my other target language. And what I expect is after synchronization in BeLazy, which can happen automatically or manually, that this is going to be like it's a different translator. Both of them are going to be assigned in Memsource. A little bit of lame project management practice from my end. Now it's all accepted. The payables, the receivables are set up automatically based on the translators. And in BeLazy, it is time to look at the monitored projects. This is one of the monitored projects. And go into an assignment. So how is this assignment working? The assignment is working based on two things. You've got existing users that you would like to assign between XTRF and, let's say, Memsource. But you can also allow the system to create users based on a rule. So this is when you set up a connection and you have an XTRF to Memsource user. Here you see on the left that the Memsource, this is called translator user. It's an already created user. And on the right, you can select any of your providers from a list. And if that provider is assigned in XTRF, then translator user is going to be assigned in Memsource. If the vendor doesn't exist, you can create a rule that you want BeLazy to automatically map the users and create accounts on demand. So if certain XTRF user is not there, then using a naming convention, which you can see it's the full name, the user is going to be created. So now I would like to show you that this is not just Memsource, not just XTRF, it works with any system. So here we are looking at a Localize interface, which is one of these trendier systems today. And in Localize, you can assign tasks to translators or translation companies. So there is a project, and this is the customer working in Localize, assigning a task to you and setting up the options and also setting up what's the source language and what are the target languages to do. The assignee is just myself. In this case, there is no other contributor involved. So I create the task. There is a task which is called translation for our LSP. It's 2 keys, 16 words. Now, when I'm working with Localize, I can set up a connection directly there, just like we set up a connection to Memsource or the vendor portal before. And it's looking into a system. And just like with XTRF to XTRF, the first thing we do when we set up a connection like this is setting up a naming convention for the project name. There are less things we can use here, but we can, for example, use the name of the Localize project, which tells you like where this is coming from, what kind of translation this is. And then you can set up a price profile, just like before. Regarding specializations, there's not much to do because there is only a general in this connection. Then which service you would like to use. Here we have selected basic service, the units, which is the source word in this case, and the rates, which is a different rate card from the rest of the rate cards in Localize. Finally, the languages, and again here, the most important thing is the sub-languages. When somebody sends you an English US job, do you want to put it to English in XTRF or English US or even English UK? And this is the matching. I want to use a naming convention and create in Localize new users based on my vendor's first name and last name. But if it's one-stop test, then the Localize username should be István Lengyel, my name. So once I have set up the automation here, I am actually synchronizing, which again is not a manual thing. This is happening automatically. It's just for the demo manual thing. And I found this project, which actually was not auto-approved, but it could be auto-approved. And I see all the information about the tasks that I have. So I don't have review here, only translation for the 2 languages, and it's 16 words altogether. Very tiny, right? You can directly go from here into the right localized language, right localized project with a link. And when you approve the project that you're taking it, again, this can be automated, then it creates corresponding project in XTRF, and it gets from the approval spending to the delivery spending. So it's a project being monitored in XTRF. This is how the XTRF project was created according to the name. You can see links, you can see some information here. And what we need to do is select the providers and of course set up the times. But for the providers, the instructions for this job is actually taking the provider to the right language. So it's a different one. You can see what is the single lang ID. It's 800 in the Latvian one. Whereas in the French one, it's not the same URL because the single lang ID there is 706. So it's very personalized how you get this. And then you just set up the normal things, either manually or with a job offer. And select a vendor, which is going to be here myself. But in the case of Latvian, I am selecting a different vendor. So the job is started. We synchronize here. And I see that I'm still added as the main translator for this project. Now, for what happened with the Latvian one? We want new contributors in the project. So I'm just selecting the Latvian workflow and user. And by selecting this user, which is called BeLazy test vendor, and the normal dates, and starting the job. After an update again, BeLazy will know that it needs to create a new user in Localize and assign Latvian to that user. So after the synchronization has happened, I can go back to my Localize project. And in the same project, there is a new user who is pending invite. So from here, Localize takes over. There is an email notification and an email confirmation, and then the project is in this user's hand. So that's basically what I wanted to show about this integration. But there are some more questions probably left, and I will also have a few questions more. So how do you start working? I mean, if you are interested in using what we offer, then drop us a line using the contact form, and we will discuss the use cases. We help you set up the initial connection, and the charge is based on usage. So for the projects that are transferred, for the projects that are automated, we charge, but it's like also smaller companies can get started. These are the current integrations, and I did not include Localize here yet, which is brand new. So Memsource is allowing multiple use cases. We've got an integration with the Globallink TMS, which is from Transperfect, and we've got an integration with Smartling and Localize. These are the TMSs. We are about to add more, like we're interested in adding World Server, XDM, SDL, TMS, MemoQ is definitely coming now. So there is more. And these are the vendor portal integrations. So the project creation ones are not able to upload the files yet, but the full automation ones can actually do the same automation that you've seen before. So we've got integrations with Transperfect, with all the Plunet users, with Transline, with all the XTRF users, with Welocalize, with Translated, with Lionbridge, with Moravia. So multiple integrations here. And now I would like to understand from you, like what are the systems that you would like to integrate with, and I'm launching the poll, like whether you are receiving projects from the different vendor portals. It's a multiple choice, so you can set up multiple. Please feel free to take some time to do this. The second question relates to the client TMSs or your own TMS, if it's like Memsource or something that you want to automate. And the third question relates to whether, when you are receiving a vendor portal-based project, do you have to work in a different client TMS? So is it like you are receiving, let's say, projects from XTRF, but you need to work in Memsource? Or you are receiving the projects from Plunet, but you need to work in MemoQ? So take some time. I'll give you like half a minute or a minute to answer this. Okay, I see that 60% has voted. I would leave another 10 seconds. Please cast your final votes. If you're not ready, you can tell me in the chat. Good. So I'm closing the poll, and let me share the results with you. Probably this is interesting for you because you see how everybody be working. I mean, a lot of people are working against XTRF vendor portals and Plunet vendor portals and Moravia's vendor portals. And there are some that don't receive projects from vendor portals or receive projects from other vendor portals. Regarding the client TMS choices, we have a leading one with Memsource, and then MemoQ, which is an integration just about to be to come, like not yet released, but to come. And then the next one is Smartling and World Server or TMS or Language Cloud. So you see where the projects are coming from. And then some of the projects need to be managed in multiple systems, so not only vendor portals, but also in TMSs. This is not something that we have at the moment available, but this is something where we are trying to move towards to help the life of companies that require this as well. So it's time to ask whether there are any questions. And if you do, you can put them into the Q&A panel, or you can put them into the chat, wherever you prefer. At the moment, there are no questions. So if there's anything you're interested in or anything you want to know or say, just to share. There was one question here, and are there any integrations with Across at the moment? At the moment, it's not available. We don't have the integration at the moment, but it's something that we would like to do. And maybe a word about this is that we are working with task forces. So when we create an integration, we are trying to team up with 3-4 companies in order to understand better the use cases and also maybe get a bit of like an advance payment as well, which can be later used as a credit. So by default, we don't want to charge, but given that there are so many systems in the world that we would need to integrate with, which is like, I was making a counting and just 25 are the ones that are important. This is very helpful when we actually see use cases. All right. Are there any additional costs apart from the monthly fee based on the projects we use BeLazy for? That was a question from Tina. Thank you for this question. This is something that we usually start with what is called onboarding. And onboarding may have a cost, and that cost is basically depending on the objectives that you want to reach. What we found is that more often than not, what people need is not only just a tool, but they need a bit of a consultancy in how to cut off the project management slack, in how to make sure that everything is working automatically and great, and liaise with the project managers. This is what we do as part of onboarding. So it's a service which we usually recommend at the beginning of the project of working together, and it's a series of calls. I mean, generally, I would say that 5-6 calls is what we normally take until a company is quite okay with the automation. Then Nicola was actually asking, how can BeLazy help if an LSP sends a job to multiple freelancers, not agencies? So at the moment, the system is not particularly aimed towards freelancers. And there is one reason for that. We want that to be free in the future. And right now we are aiming to create the necessary like weight in the industry to be able to do that. And I mean, this is something that we have the freelance availability. We've got some views on this, but it's not so much part of what we are doing today in XTRF. So that's not so central there. And what we'd like to help companies with is to introduce a way where they are able to automatically assign jobs, but without really offending the translators or sending too many emails that are going to be answered no, without causing extra work for the freelancers. That's very central to us because we want to give some value to all of the supply chain. So these were the questions. If there are no more questions, then I would like to thank you very much for your attention today. And I hope to see you in another webinar, or if you are interested in what we are doing, please get in touch with us through the website. There is a contact form and we'll be happy to have a personal conversation. Thanks a lot, and take care, and bye-bye.